Cami and Ashley, thank you guys for having us here. We're extremely excited about our topic today. You know, it was almost 9 years ago now when we started Five with one mission, and that was to help people. And we knew in order to do this, we would have to really raise the bar and change the way that business is being done in the energy advisory industry. You know, and year after year after year, Five has actually been recognized for being one of the fastest growing companies in the country. And I get the question all the time, you know, Chris, what is one thing that has led to such incredible growth as you guys have seen year after year? And I can tell you that the one thing for us, it wasn't that we had the most amazing salespeople, or it definitely wasn't the 4CP and demand ratchet training I've done for TEMA year after year. It wasn't even that we were doing some industry leading usage analysis and, you know, incredible client platform. It wasn't any of that stuff. The one thing that led to such incredible growth for Five was our culture. And I'm so excited to have JScheiflebein, our Chief Culture Officer, here today to talk to you, because I truly believe that you have the ability to influence change in your organization, no matter what position or title you hold. So Jeff, thanks so much for being here. I want to turn it over to you to talk to everyone about our two passions at Five, energy and culture.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. And I love that concept that it's two passions, but one purpose, because it really does come back to helping people. And I hope that today's session, I'm going to cram a lot of information in here and some storytelling, that you're able to glean something that helps you immediately, and that you're inspired to also take hold of this idea that culture matters. Let's first, though, talk about the world that you live in. I got to imagine that this would sound familiar to you, that you've been meeting with some of the best vendors and getting shared best practices from other members of TEMA and people in your community, that you've established rapport and relationships with different people that you have to answer to and lead along the way. And you have this master plan, and it's a lot of different pieces that are kind of spinning together, and you're trying to line it up and you're trying to keep everything together. And then you feel like you're talking to a brick wall. You don't get the feedback you expected. You don't get the momentum you expected. You, in fact, sometimes realize that you've just said the same thing 10 times. And guess what? This is not unique to being an energy manager. It's not unique to school districts. This is the world we live in, that often we're dealing with people who aren't listening, or we're in the middle of progress and somebody quits, or a lot of people quit, or we're in a constant state of turnover. It's really hard to build a master plan. It's really hard to make progress when you often feel like you're stepping back to reestablish even the basic groundwork, or sometimes even just establish your role, as you maybe have new administration, new bosses, new stakeholders involved. You end up feeling like you're carrying too much workload. People are quitting, work's not getting done. You can't take a break. Even when you take a break, you're not taking a break. And for some reason, in this world of decisions that you have a pretty clear vision on, or you at least know how to put the right things in motion, you're still paddling upstream. You're still fighting a current. That's typical. That is not specific to schools or to your job. But I'm telling you, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be an answer to having a healthier balance of how we, the experts in whatever our chosen field are, that we can have both our visions come true and also enroll other people in the dialogue, in the conversation about how to push that forward, so that what we do for a living becomes a team sport. There's got to be a place where we can make that progress, right? Well, I'm here to tell you there is. I'm here to talk to you about the fact that culture building can serve as a catalyst for change. And I want you to know, as we kind of establish this, I'm not going to give you my resume. I'm going to tell you that I've been blessed for 25 years to be a part of cultures that value human dignity. I'm blessed to be a part of cultures where employees and coworkers are treated as fully formed adults, right? They're given tremendous amounts of responsibility and freedom and autonomy. And those organizations, especially when they're hitting on all cylinders, they take a team-based approach to each of the different parts of the organization to move further down the road to a shared vision. And one of the key principles in all that is having a stakeholder mentality, not a shareholder mentality. I'm one of the founders of this firm, right, of 5. And a shareholder mentality would be all about the owners and the founders of the firm maximizing profit. And that's, many of the business books we've seen before. But that's short-sighted. And even though there's companies out there that can make good money doing that, it misses out on the bigger picture, which is a stakeholder mentality, one where we talk about every one of the stakeholders having a win-win-win relationship. And that's what we've always set out to do. And it turns out you can have better, healthier, longer success in an environment where people are more connected to the vision and giving their best. So let's talk for a minute about what we're going to cover in today's session. And I'm going to cover 5 areas after we set the stage here. First, in culture building, I'm going to talk about flipping the communication paradigm upside down. Then we're going to cover just a few tips around rules of engagement. And that's around communication as well. We're going to talk about the language of coaching, some tips that you can apply immediately, regardless of the relationships, or if you're talking to superiors or subordinates, just how the language of coaching is a game changer. We're going to talk about making it personal, which you don't hear that very often when we're talking about our organizations, our school districts, our businesses. We've been taught so often that business and personal can't be the same. In fact, you have to put up some wall between. It's not true, and I'm here to talk about that as well. We're going to finish with a conversation around shared experiences. But in order for all this to make sense, I think it also starts that we should establish that what it's like when you're working at a great culture, or when your school district has a great culture, what is the impact to coworkers? And you'll hear that people in a great culture say that they feel respected. People in a great culture feel connected and heard and recognized. And you even get to an element where people say that we treat each other like family. But you don't take that too far, because we might treat each other like family at our company, but we also recognize that each other's real families come first, that the work relationship is not there to be somehow superior to the home relationship for the whole health of that stakeholder, of that employee. We also recognize that when you combine human connection and work with a shared vision, the team starts to align, right? People start to be engaged. And what happens when your employees are engaged and when your coworkers are engaged and when your team is engaged is they take ownership, right? They bring their most creative versions to work. They shine. They bring their energy. They take appropriate risks. Like, if you're thinking about how do we make progress, having some amount of appropriate risk taking is important. People support each other. They support each other and feel supported even in failure, even in the fact that if I had the mission, vision, and values of the organization in mind and I failed, or I did something that caused financial harm or wasn't the right move, that so long as I was doing that with proper intent, then we can work through it, so long as it wasn't ill intent. People who work in a good culture, I'll tell you this, they smile more often. And people that are smiling more often are usually more optimistic about what they're working on. They're usually more solution mindset and less of a problem mindset, right? They may identify a problem, and instead of complaining about it, they think, how can we make this better? How can I collaborate in order to do something better here? So I would ask you right now, as you're just thinking about this, what would your school district look like if you knew that everybody, or the vast majority of people around you, were bringing their best versions of themselves to work every day? When you cultivate an authentic human connection, as we'll talk about, which I believe is one of the cornerstones of an authentic or great company culture, you're really achieving what we talk about in my favorite business book. It's called Tribal Leadership. And in fact, in a minute, you'll see where the name of our company came from. But tribal leadership talks about the different stages that an organization or a group can go through. And it's really cornered or circling around 2 hallmarks: the communication of that group and the relationships within that group. And the first 2 levels, 1 and 2, are really bad. They're a bad place to be, and I don't think your school district is there. I think most school districts, most teams, most businesses are really a level 3. So let me just start there. Level 3 cultures, and we're trained this way our entire lives, are kind of a inward protectionist mentality. Level 3 cultures say, I'm great and you're not. So in the case of people in a work environment, we may not realize we're doing it. We may be writing emails where we make sure that we look good and somebody else looks bad, or that if something went wrong, we prove that it wasn't our fault. And we focus more on proving that we're not at fault and less on trying to say, how can we be successful together? So again, some of the biggest businesses, some of the most successful, financially successful organizations, they're level 3, but that's not a place of thriving. That's a place of just showing up and making sure that you don't look bad. Level 4, though, is a different level. Right now, you're moving into a place of formation, a place of human flourishing. And I like to think of this as stable team partnerships. So where level 3 was I'm great and you're not, level 4 becomes we are great and they are not, right? So now we're at least unified as a team. We have a worthy adversary. That could be a school, that could be, in my case, a competitor, it could be a distraction, and we're competing against all those different things that could get in the way of our clients. What's really neat is a level 4 culture. It doesn't take very long to look around, and I'll just pick on the airline industry for a second. I fly a lot for work, and when I get on a Southwest Airlines plane, I feel that we're great mentality. I think that the gate agent and the pilot and the person cleaning the jetway all feel like they're part of the same team, and they all seem to care about the stakeholders, me walking down to get on that airplane, and that doesn't happen as often with other airlines. So level 4 is a really great place to be, and that's one of the things we're going to be targeting today as I share some tips with you. Now, level 5, which the name of our company is actually just the digit 5, it's because of this book, and it's because when you can get to a level 5, that's like a moment where you're competing not with other people in your space, but you're competing with what's possible. You're transcending the idea of competition, and instead, the combined efforts of a team lead to breakthroughs that no one even thought was possible. So it has almost a euphoric moment of hitting these level 5 moments, these level 5 results for clients, for each other. And what's neat about that idea of a level 5 culture is you don't get to stay there. You have moments there, and then you come back into high level 4 and mid level 4, because what you really did was set a new high watermark on what production could look like. What could it look like to have the happiest, and not just happiest, but most fulfilled set of parents and students and graduates and faculty? And what role do we play in making that happen? And especially when we're not playing that role in a silo, when we're in a partnership with all the other departments and all the other stakeholders within our school district, you can really get to those moments of high level 4 or possibly even level 5 breakthrough. And the bottom line is that there is an absolute return on investment when you focus on culture. So let me give you some examples here at 5. When we have our culture aligned, and we do a pretty good job of this, there's a lot of focus on this, we have less people issues, right? There's less complaining, there's less bickering, there's less of that back channel conversations. Our entire HR department is encapsulated in 1% of my time because I don't have to deal with people issues, and we have over 60 people nationwide working for us. I also have less legal issues, right? When you have a culture where we are great and we are dignified in our work, people are more often doing the right thing. And I don't just mean that they're morally sound. I mean that they're stepping into a place where they're correcting each other. They are putting up guardrails and saying, whoa, hey, before we do this, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Let's check with some other people, rather than living in that fear of, I just want to be in my isolated department and make no waves and don't do anything wrong. And a lot of people make mistakes there because they're not actually getting the best possible advice in whatever they're focusing on next, which obviously leads to a place where you need to be engaged in open and honest conversation. The other thing, and we talked about it a second ago when I said, what does your world maybe look like at different times, is we have less turnover, right? We're able to do a better job of getting the right people in the door, put them in the right seats, and then also empowering them to work through tough, critical conversations with one another. So you can see as we go along, ultimately, if we can get our team members and our direct spheres of influence to start to be a part of the same conversation, now imagine if we can take that same conversation to the rest of our stakeholders. If now all of a sudden, just like what I experience when I call Southwest Airlines or when my flight gets canceled, what if parents that are upset are getting a unified team that includes the energy managers, the administrators, the facilities folks, the teachers, that are all part of the same team, and that parents and vendors and suppliers and even the community at large are all in a win-win-win scenario because the team rose up to the occasion of serving and caring about those stakeholders. Think about, how do I approach what my needs are? How do I get people engaged in all of these things that I want to do from an energy perspective? I would challenge you to think that if you can have the right culture, you can start to reduce some of those bottom line expenses and some of those frustrations. You can create space for even personal formation and flourishing. You may have people on your team right now that the only thing holding them back is that nobody's ever trusted them or given them responsibility or talked to them in a dignified manner that caused them to show up and to step up. So here's what I would love for you to be able to do over the next 12 months is to create a culture within your organization where the vast majority of your teammates, instead of saying, I have to go to work, I have to fix this, I have to go review this document, they're now saying, I get to. I get to go review this proposal. I get to go and troubleshoot a problem that we're having at one of our schools. And that get to mentality is one of the ways that you started to transform a culture. And then, you bring it all together and the results will speak for themselves because you will be able to get the things that you want to accomplish as an energy manager done better, quicker, cheaper as a result of having a better culture. So I've set the stage for you. Now let's talk about those 5 different areas that I was referring to on tips that can help you to have a better culture. So first, I talked about flipping the communication paradigm upside down. Normally, when we think about communication, we send emails, maybe a text message, we might make a phone call, and then maybe we'll do a video call or maybe we'll see people in person, but it's almost like our MO is to go straight to email. It's a safe place. I can shoot it over to you. Text, I can kind of hide behind it. There's no emotion, there's no discussion. And what we end up doing is lacking so much of the communication that people aren't getting when they're just reading an email from me, right? And I'm telling you right now that if you flip this over, this is a small step that is just about retraining your muscle memory to think about communication differently, right? I know this is tougher during a time of COVID, but take it with a grain of salt. When I can speak to somebody in person, I have a different relationship, whether I have to be masked or we have to be socially distanced. I know that's not always possible, but there's a whole lot of ways to talk over video now. And I think in video, we all know this, right? When you FaceTime with somebody, you have a different interaction with them than when you're just on the phone. Here's an interesting piece for you. Right now, I can't see any of you, right? We pre-recorded this, but if you can see my face, your brain is tricking you, just like it does in a movie, to feel like I'm with you right now. And when we do presentations at work, even if our clients or our stakeholders, maybe their camera's not working, they're not able to log in wherever they are, when they can see you, when somebody can see your expressions, the brain tricks you into thinking you're there. It's the same reason we get so wrapped up into movies that our emotions go through humor and fear and laughter and sadness. It's because our brain is tricking us into thinking that this is really happening in front of us. So I can watch, when I'm in a one-way video conference, I can watch people lean forward and engage differently, even if I can't see them on video, or we've seen it where when we can't see each other and they lean forward. Hope that made sense. So after that, if I'm not doing video, I'll do phone, text. You know what I think email is? I feel like email is a place that we document things or that we maybe pose a question for discussion. But email is not the place that I think that we should be engaging in a debate and a dialogue. If it gets past about 5 replies, I would tell you cut off the email completely. Make whoever's on that email chain that's engaging speak to one another and then wrap it up, put a bow on it and send an email saying, here's what we all discussed and what we came to. Because how many times have you seen this where you're reading an email? Now there's 3 questions below here. Somebody answers one of them. Now somebody's upset about the second one. We don't even know what we're talking about anymore. And people are just sending emails to prove that they did something, somebody else didn't. And it becomes a meaningless form of communication if we rely on it too much. So we talked about the 5 different things we're going to cover. The second is rules of engagement. And I just want to share an easy example that I think has an impact on culture that we have employed here. And it looks like this. How many times do you find yourself at night reading an email from somebody that is non-critical i.e. it's not urgent, but maybe it's asking questions or trying to point out something that's wrong, or it's a frustration, or it's 10 things they need done. And you find your brain now gets connected into that email. Maybe it happens right before you have dinner with the family. It happens on a Saturday when you're going to go out and hang out with your family. It could happen when you're going to bed at night. And here's what I've found interesting. When people send emails at odd hours, that's fine if it's an emergency. However, I got to believe that emergencies are not email worthy, they're phone worthy. So I have trouble imagining what email is an urgent message. So take it further. I like to work at night. I have some people that work for us on the East Coast that like to get going at 4:30 their time, which is 3:30 in Texas, and they like to work. But it's hard to say, oh, just wait to read my emails later, just wait to read your emails later. If Chris gets an email from me, he's going to read it. He's going to read it if he sees it right before he goes to bed. He's going to read it if he sees it on a Saturday. I can work on a Saturday and then just use easy mechanisms, right? Each one of our email clients has the options where you can delay delivery. So I might be working all weekend, and then 7:30 a.m. on Monday, my emails just start trickling out one at a time to the 10 different people that I need to message, and I didn't hijack any part of their weekend. So I do think that there's some amount of recognizing that people weren't meant to be working 24/7, especially on non-critical items. If you have a critical item, you're an energy manager. You could easily have a critical item. I don't know that an email asking some random question necessitates critical. So you want to save those bullets, if you will. You want to save those moments for the times that you really do need people to engage, and then respect their non-working time as best as possible, and start to create an environment where maybe your boss or somebody else always emails you that way. Fight that temptation to engage and try to prove that you're also working, and create rules of engagement, and even talk about the way that ends up impacting you. And that takes us to this language of coaching, right? If we're going to talk about how do things impact us, if I need to give communication to a superior or to a subordinate, I can come at them and say, you know, that email that you sent me on Saturday, that ruined my day, and blah, blah, blah. And if I catch them off guard, look at this stick figure, or this person on the right here, you see that reaction. They fold their arms and scowl, and they're ready to attack because you surprised them. And so here's a few tips on engaging in difficult communication, difficult conversations, be it about work, policies, personal interactions, you name it, is think of ways that you can set the table before you have somebody sit down with you. If I walk up to Chris and say, hey man, that really makes me mad that you blah, 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 or hey man, you really hurt my feelings with such and such, and Chris is in the middle of whatever project he's working on, or maybe he's taking care of something that's related to his family, he just got a message, I may, and you've seen this, catch him off guard or catch him at the wrong time, and he's in a fight mode or he's in a flight mode, he's not ready for the conversation. But if I say to Chris, hey Chris, when you have a few minutes, I'd love to get your perspective on something, or better yet, Chris, there was something that you said earlier that I want to understand better, or something that happened earlier that I want to make sure I get what you're aiming at, because it didn't sit right with me. Let me know when you have a few minutes. Or, hey Chris, when you have some time today, I'd love to give you some coaching, or I'd love to be able to provide you with some feedback. And I'll tell you what happens when you use those words, right? Instead of coming at it on the first moment with, here's what I'm gonna put in front of you, all I've basically said is, in other words, Chris, if you're ready, I would love for you to detach from whatever you're doing and we can talk now. Or if now's not a good time, you know that when we talk later, I have some things I want to share with you. I have some tough conversations, some vulnerable conversation. Those are all ways that I can guide, interact with, get coaching from Chris, right? I could say in that same conversation, Chris, what feedback do you have for me about that same interaction, that same thing that happened to us? Those are for coaching moments. There's also critical moments when somebody's making a gross error or something is really, really wrong. I'd address those on the spot, but those are few and far between. Most of the time, these are just coaching conversations. So then we talked about, in my list of 5 things that you can do to really create this culture where people are communicating, connecting, and enrolling in the things that you're sharing. One of them is to make it personal. We spend a lot of time working together. We spend a lot of time communicating with our coworkers inside and outside of the workday, just as things roll along. And of course, trying to avoid those late night or weekend messages when we can. But if we can find ways to recognize each individual's humanity and dignity, then we can engage and connect on a meaningful level. And notice nothing about this is you should be friends with everybody. I don't mean that in any way, but I want to recognize the human that is a part of my team. I also want to recognize that that person's spouse and that person's family are also stakeholders in our success, right? For this person to end up being a better part of their family or a better part of their community or friendship group is only going to benefit us, because I'm going to have somebody who's in a whole health situation walking into work in a better place. I also think that the better I know my own teammates, the better we can perform together, because I can spot when somebody's having a rough day, we all do, or when somebody's going through a personal battle, or when somebody has extra bandwidth and extra energy and they can help to take the load off of somebody else. And when you treat people like fully formed adults, you'll be surprised how they rise to the occasion. When you give them real responsibility and you don't have to look over their shoulder, and you say, I trust you, it's pretty amazing what happens next. Also in a time of COVID, I think the check-ins on people are pretty important. Everybody's dealing with this differently. So there's a two-way sharing mechanism. We built a CARES team at our company. We reach out, we ask people, how are you doing today? We say, is there anybody in your life that you're concerned about right now in relation to COVID or health? And that second question is where people really start to expose the first question, how they're doing today, because you find out about elderly parents, you find about spouses and partners, you find about all these situations that you wouldn't otherwise know. And then you can be appropriately vulnerable. Here's something that life is teaching me right now. And when somebody just needs a pick-me-up, you can do triage moments, right? Maybe there's a surprise and delight. You send a box of cookies to somebody's house. You write them a handwritten sticky note. Sometimes is all it takes. You have your boss give them a call and just say, I think you're doing a great job, or how's it going? All those things make people feel heard, listened to, respected. But remember, none of us are licensed, well, for energy managers and for what we do, licensed professional therapists. So when somebody's in a really bad spot, obviously you get a professional involved. But I would say that in the world of COVID, what I found is that every single person's perspective is basically correct, because it's coming from their experience. And we have people on every end of the spectrum of what they've seen, and we just show how to respect their perspectives. So make it personal and watch that shift, that when people are disgruntled and people are quitting jobs, they're often quitting bosses and teams more than they're quitting paychecks and the amount of money they make. In fact, when you have the right type of setup or the right type of company culture, there's a lot of people who are willing to work for less money because they like feeling respected and coming home in a fresh way and not in a beat down way. The fifth one that I talked about was shared experiences. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M. Chris is not, so I'm sorry about that. You just stay on mute there, Chris. Shared experiences, Texas A&M got this right. They started from the very beginning and built all these traditions, and they said from the outside looking in, you can't understand it, and from the inside looking out, you can't explain it. And I got to tell you, that's really smart, because we've been using that tactic at all the companies that I've been a part of for the last 25 years. At Five, we do some really neat things, right? We do an all-hands meeting when people come together. And of course, we do your traditional things like state of the company and individual groups doing their report outs. But we'll bring in outside speakers that challenge us. Last year, we had a company talent show. This year, we're having a company film festival. Everybody gets to make their own films. We have people share their talks, their individual talks called Why Five, and they talk about what motivates them as humans. Like, again, recognizing their human dignity, recognizing that they weren't put on earth to just make money, right? There's something else about them, just like their body wasn't created to pump blood and breathe oxygen. So why Five, or why fill in the blank, allowed these people to give 5-minute talks about their life that endeared the rest of the company to them. We do surprise and delight moments throughout the year, just to keep it fresh so that people know that we care about them. This is an easy one. We start off every morning with a quick kickoff call. People jump on the videos from all over the US and Mexico, and they say, what's the one thing they're doing today? And then we have a fun or a serious question of the day. And you can have a lot of fun with that, but it just, again, connects people. And it gets back to that description I was giving you about the airline. We're all on the same team. We're all in this together. In fact, when you can, doing volunteer work together. is one of those moments where I can remember doing storm relief with guys from the company, and we were cleaning up a house that had been hit by a tornado. It was a ton of work, and to this day, those people that were with me that day, we have a bond that isn't easily described because we went through that experience together. So I thought in the few minutes left, it would be fun to share just a couple examples of shared experiences that we had over the last few months. And these are somewhat COVID related because we were all remote, but they were a lot of fun. So first, I just want you to meet Shashi. He's the head of finance and accounting at Five. He originally came to work for us back in May of 2018 and had moved to America back in 2006 from India. And so Shashi had this fear of public speaking. When he joined our company, he decided to overcome that, and he joined Toastmasters. Well, you can imagine when he finished his second talk and then COVID hit, and he was really starting to find a little bit of a rhythm, Shashi was disappointed because it went black. So we scheduled a talk called Shashi Gives a Speech. It was an 18-minute talk, and we invited the company, and we made it completely optional. So Shashi, who has a fear of public speaking, jumps on Zoom. We had 43 attendees join Shashi on this talk. He ended up giving a 20-minute speech about his fear of speaking and why he has 2 birthdays. I watched the people on the screen lean in. I watched them cry, laugh, and then something really neat happened. When he was done talking, it went on for another 20 minutes, and it was affirmations coming from person after person of Shashi's story, his style, who he is as a person. And so many people that have only been in the room with Shashi once or twice because we're so spread out have a connection to him that's greater than I can explain. It's funny, though, to also point out a bunch of us are wearing shirts that have Shashi's face on them, including Shashi. But look what happened. A brand new employee who had been here for a month sends me a text message, and he says, "It's an amazing team we've put together. So proud and thankful for the opportunity. I'm glad I became a Fiver." I get an email from a veteran that says we could break every sales record, and it wouldn't matter because I'm the most proud I've ever been right now of Shashi for being brave and vulnerable, and for the rest of the team for showing up and supporting him. So you see, in just a 20-minute talk that cost me $0, we ended up having a moment that has bonded our company even from afar. Katie was getting ready to have her first son, her third baby, and we surprised her with baby shower backgrounds on a Monday morning kickoff call. And that's Katie crying as she couldn't believe that we were doing virtual gifting and a virtual celebration of her baby. We did get Zoom bombed, though, and I got to admit, Carol Baskin and Joe Exotic and some others showed up. So we had some fun with that. It's not a real Zoom bomb, don't be afraid, but I did make everybody think it happened. And so while these examples could maybe come across as playful, it is really important to understand that shared experiences create a more deeper, meaningful experience. And I think about the times that we've done book clubs together or watched a leadership talk together and then had a conversation about it. You can be creative. And imagine if on your energy management team or the group that you have direct supervision and influence over, maybe it's a small group in your school. But I will tell you that when you start to engage in shared experiences and now a new vernacular, a new way of talking about leadership, opportunity, innovation, don't be surprised when people from other parts of the organization want to join you for the next TED Talk that you're going to watch together, or the next leadership book that you're going to read together, because people have a way of being attracted to and wanting to be a part of something that's better, something that's healthier, something that's more progressive. And so how great would it be if accounting and procurement and facilities and the administration team are actually all starting to join in a conversation that allows you to talk about books like Good to Great and your hedgehog concept and the flywheel, or tribal leadership, or fill in the blank on a book that you like. Malcolm Gladwell's are always fun ones. But remember that all of this comes down to our incredible culture is rooted in this shared mission, this shared vision, and having a purpose. And we come together and we overcome obstacles, right? We share with each other openly. We share our financials, our struggles, our new developments. We are a transparent company to one another. We love hosting brainstorms. We love having these fast action teams that are aligned to go and solve issues together. And we do connect every day, even in COVID, always over video, sometimes one-on-one, many times in small groups or in big groups for every single company meeting. And I'll tell you that the results of all of this culture focus, is that we work hard, we create tremendous value for our stakeholders, we do make an appropriate amount of profit, and we have a great time together doing something meaningful. So the challenge I would have to you as we conclude here is, what can you do to engage your team differently? What are you resisting right now? What barriers are you putting up that stops you from thinking this is possible in your school district? And what would the world look like if a year from now or 2 years from now, that master plan and that vision that you have for what can be possible for energy management at your school includes collaboration from every part of your school, and it includes an optimism and an enrollment, a buy-in, and most importantly, the collective wisdom of that crowd, and it's no longer sitting on your shoulders to muscle through all of the pain and the brick walls and the turnover. I'm really thankful that we got a chance to talk about culture at a TEMA meeting. What a cool new development within the TEMA group. We will now open it up to live Q&A. Thanks for watching this recording. I appreciate y'all.
Okay, Jeff, Chris, that was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and Jeff, go ahead and get on here if you want. Yes, thank you.
There we go.
And there we go. We are open for questions. Guys, all right, Andy Jimenez is starting to type. So again, Jeff, thank you. Thank you. We've got a whole bunch of people starting to contribute to the messages. So here we
go. I'm unmuted now. I'm good.
Yay.
Hi, y'all.
That technical stuff, you know, I have problems with volume buttons. So it's been a week. So Paul Buckner from Bryan ISD, great presentation. Thank you. Knew it had to be an Aggie that was presenting. Well, you're on that side. I'm on this side. So I went ahead and let you unmute yourself, but you know, it's okay.
You know what? I will say that because of COVID, I feel a greater connection to everybody that I used to feel a rivalry with. I would love to be in UT Austin right now, having this meeting and celebrating anything just to be together. So.
Well, actually, we would be having this meeting in Texas A&M Corpus Christi right now. So yes, right down the street from that university. So yes. Everybody just keeps saying great presentation, very motivating, very interesting. We don't seem to have a lot of questions, but what I would like to have you guys talk about is there any kind of final thoughts? Is there anything else that you would like to add to this? Because there's just so many good hands-on things for team building and leadership and things that you gave for us. So have at.
You bet. I could probably talk for another 3 hours if you let me, so I'll keep it somewhat brief. But I do want a takeaway, especially if this is kind of something that's new to people, to think for a second that this starts with that you got to believe that culture matters, that there is an absolute positive impact to what you're trying, the change you're trying to impact, the strategies you're trying to put together when culture is important to you. So you got to A, believe it matters, and then B, you got to believe that regardless of your role in the organization, your tenure in the organization or group, that you can influence culture. And that is a long-term mentality. It's a mentality of that I want to have a healthy environment, both for the goals of the organization, but also for myself, right? A better culture, even if it's painful to get there, is me investing in a future. So I would just say believe that this works, because it does. And you know, we can all make money and have jobs and be in places that aren't a great culture or aren't striving to improve, and that's fine. But I don't think that's interesting. I don't think that gets you motivated to wake up each day and get right back to it. One thing as I watched this presentation, and we recorded this a couple weeks ago, I was also just thinking about, it comes across in the presentation, but a final thought that I would give is that words really matter. That if what I'm trying to do is create connection, because every business is a people business. There's none of us that don't operate in a people business. That if I'm trying to create connection and collaboration, my words can tear people down, and my words can build people up. My words can derail, or my words can get us aligned. And a trick, I kind of said it in there at one point, we changed our words here a long time ago to stop saying I don't care. If somebody was, which way should we go, or I have all these details I want to share with you. If I say I don't care, it's pretty degrading. It's pretty deflating. But if I change that and use the same number of words, I can say I trust you. You know what? Which one of these two things should we do, boss? I trust you. You got this. Or Chris is giving me too much details and he's going into some deal and I'm kind of busy. And I said, Chris, I'm sorry, I got to look away, but I totally trust you on where you're going with this. Now he feels uplifted by it and he can kind of move forward. Same thing with using language of we and not me, right? If you start talking about my energy strategy or my energy budget, you've now labeled the entire goal and the entire program that you're going to put in place as somehow being related to you, and it's not. It's the energy budget. It's our energy plan, and you just happen to be a contributor, a major contributor to it, but it's not you and it's not yours. So stop making people feel like they're on the outside of it. Start using that we language, and it's pretty neat to watch people start to talk in the same way about other parts of the business. So.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I think
I
also,
say that to my wife. I heard I trust you is a really smart thing to say to your spouse versus I don't care.
Yep, absolutely. One thing I was just going to mention too, and you can see kind of as people just jump on and mention things and talking about, the presentation being great and all of that. One thing that I love that I know I do with a lot of school districts that we work with and people here at TEMA, I mean, it's literally the entire reason why TEMA was created was to share best practices.
Absolutely.
So, if you do something that is building a great culture at your district, share it with others. We love talking about culture all day long. I mean, gosh, if you don't have anybody to talk to, call me, call Jeff, email us, something like that, and set up a meeting. But I think really people sharing what works for them, because I know there's probably going to be some people sitting back and be like, well, that's great, Jeff. You're in the private sector. At a school district, it works a little bit differently. Let me tell you, right? And so stop feeding that into your mind. Start trying to implement things. And if you can't think of something, lean on others in TEMA, lean on other districts, ask them what they're doing. And that's how we all, create this culture and get better. So
you're absolutely right. And TEMA was established as a place to share best practices, but what makes us work, and one of the things that we've all said over and over again, is our commitment to relationship and our commitment to each other. And so that culture of relationship, it's so important. We do have more of a technical question from Jennifer Malinek. She says, we have issues with comfort levels rather than energy savings. Do you have any advice on how to handle administration?
Well, that's Chris, I'll let you help out with this one too, because I know you get to face this all the time. I actually think this hits to the heart of this, right? That almost becomes one of these issues where people aren't even speaking the same language. We're coming at it from an energy savings conversation, a budget conversation, a plan that I'm trying to execute on, versus the human element of comfort level, and now an administration who's trying to please constituents, right? Teachers, students, hyperactive family members, and you're having to do this weird juggling balancing act. I think coming at it with that air of not feeling like you're on the opposite sides of an issue with an administrator, but helping them to maybe take a step back with you and walk through a plan, walk through even the problem step by step without trying to be preemptive in the answer. You may know where it's likely to end up, but helping them, asking them to help you walk through the problem of all the conflicting resources you're having to juggle, and see what the conclusion is at the end. Because what you may find is every once in a while, there may be an administrator who's not in energy, but has some brilliant idea or a light bulb moment, no pun intended, that plays out, right? Let's be open to that. Yeah. But more often what's going to happen is they're going to put themselves in your shoes as you walk through it together, and they're going to start to say, oh, I see. I think there's some things that we could do to communicate differently or set different expectations with the people that have a comfort level issue. But if you come at it like let's go back to the marriage thing. I think it was Kelly that brought up marriage. if we're both pushing on the boulder, if one of us wins, we crushed the other person.
Yeah.
But if we can find a way to get on the other side and say, okay, as a team, let's start together. Let's solve this together. I think that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Trey Parsons is been typing for a little while, so we're going to kind of let him keep typing. Does anybody have anything else that you'd like to ask Chris or Jeff? We got a couple of people typing. I'm going to go ahead and tech issues. I'm going to go ahead and let you know. I feel your pain, Trey, all day, all day. But you can reach out to both of these gentlemen at their booth 5. I know that our official exhibitor hall hours are over, but I'm sure that if you message them, they'll get back to you. And
Absolutely.
so, but you could find them through the networking section of our conference. You can find them at the booth 5. Ask them your questions, reach out to them. They have their emails. Chris Watson, you can find him through our website, because Chris is a very active and fantastic member of TEMA. We're just so glad to have you. But you can reach out to him through the website and always contact him. And if all else fails, give me a holla. I'll get you his. So we've got a whole bunch of thank yous. We've got a whole bunch of very inspirational. Trey Parsons says, thank you for the timely and very wise message. Culture works. It also saves energy and sanity. People are the foundation of culture. Yes.
Trey, I think you have a presentation in your future called Culture Works. It also saves energy. I'm 100% aligned with that. That's right.
Trey is new to TEMA, but I think that is a great idea.
Fellow evangelist. I agree, Trey. You're in good company.
Absolutely. Bring it on for April of 2021, Trey.
No.
So, all right, guys, if there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this session so you guys can get to the 3 o'clock. Fantastic. I thank you guys so much. This was
absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Fantastic. Thank you for making the time for us. And we will see you all at the 3 o'clock session. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks.